Okay, with that said, let's do this. So let's quickly go to our documentation website. Let me zoom, and I hope you can see my screen before I continue. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, I'm recording with a different software today. So just a moment. Okay, so this is the documentation that we are going to use today. Actually, we are going to create a pool, a system where you can poll, you can do some things, or you can poll, not poll. Actually, it's poll, not poll. Poll. That is poll. We are going to create a small system with only two questions, one, two, three questions, and from that, I hope you learn a lot, and you can use that knowledge or that skill or that code. Now you expand it and you make it a different and a bigger app. So what we are going to do, we are going to look at several parts of these Django applications. We are going to get deeper into models. Also, are going to get better in we are going to get better in other things. So from here, we are going to set up our Django application. And to set up our Django application, we have done this activity several times. So I'm going to go to my files, directly to my files where I've been creating my Django applications. This is it, Django project. Then here is where I'm going to create a different Django project. So here I'm going to create all my Django projects inside this folder. So you can create yourself the root folder where you are going to create your different projects, one, two, three projects, or like that. So I'm going to open this with the PowerShell. I like creating everything from the command line interface, um, so that I can flex as a developer. So from here, we are going to create our Django application. But in case you are getting hard time, you can just revisit the recordings for the previous sessions. We have already done around 10 setups. Is it 10 or around 10? Between 10 to 12 setups for Django applications. So this should be not new to us. So what we need to do, just go to pip, not pip install, but because we already have the virtual environment that we installed, we just need to use the virtual environment, virtual env or virtual environment. Then we create our project name. We can call it poll system. So as we create this system, you can either decide to go with us or you just wait for the recording and then you access it. But in the meantime, this project that we are going to create, the next session, we are not going to create the same project. We are going to continue working on this project. So there's no need for you to, or for us to create a different project next time or the next session. So using your virtual environment, then you create the project name. Then we have already created that project. So the next step is basically changing directory or navigating to that poll system like that. Then from there, you can now activate your virtual environment. So these commands should not be new to you because we have repeated them several times. So And I already shared the documentation for that and also the Canva presentation for that. I've been sharing all through. So the next thing that we need to do is installing our Django project. So pip install Django like that. Then pip install Django. Then we install our Django application. So let's wait for it to do its thing. Then we are going to continue. So we can wait. Okay, we can wait and so let's give it time. And there we go. So we have created our Django project. So the next thing that we need to do is actually after creating or after installing that Django project, we need to create our project now here inside this poll system. So what we are going to do, we are going to what we are going to do, we are going actually to create our Django project. So we use Django admin that has already been installed. Then we use the command start project. Then we start my project name. We can just name it my site for simplicity. Then we can just do like that. So we can wait for it to create our Django app, and our Django app is already here up and running. So with that, let's do the next step as usual. We are going to navigate to that my site. Then after navigating to that my site, as usual, we always try to test our server if it's up and running. So we can just do python manage.py. Then we run our server just to test if it's working. You can either change this port or you can either decide to leave it as the default app, not app but port for accessing your Django applications. So with that said, because our app is up and running, now we can do the next step. And the next step is basically creating a Django app. Remember, we have created a Django project, but we have not created a Django app. So we need to go to the next step, that is creating the Django application. So to create a Django application, we can just decide to go back here. We can either we can just stop that server because we don't need it for now. We don't need it for now, so we can just decide to stop that server. So what we are going to do here, because we are already in my site, I'm going to basically create my Django app. So I'm going to do Django admin, but in case I'm too fast, you can kindly tell me that I'm going too fast. In case I'm too fast, feel free to tell me that I'm too fast. So with the command Django admin start app, then we give it the app name. We can just call it my app, or you can decide to give it Paul. You can just decide to give it any name of your choice. So with that said, we have started our Django. We have started our Django app. So because now we have our Django app and we have our Django project, our Django app inside our Django project. So what we are going to do now, we are going now to go to our Visual Studio Code and then configuring the settings, registering everything as usual. So I'm going to open this with my Visual Studio Code. Don't think if that will accept. I'm using Visual Studio Code Insiders. Unfortunately, it seems not to work out. Let me try this. No, it's not working. So I can just open my Visual Studio Code manually. So I'll go to the poll system. Then I want to open this my site. So I can just go here and then straight open my site with my Visual Studio Code like that. So here I'm going to make sure that I'm zoomed. Let me zoom this. So let me set up everything like this, like this. And I hope everyone can see my screen before we continue. And I want to, in case, okay, David has already shared the repo, not the repo, but the documentation tutorial that we are going to use for this project. So in case you want to follow along, make sure that you follow that documentation. Every code that we are going to write, every single bit of code, we are going to extract it from that documentation. So it's nothing new. David, you can resend that tutorial or that Django documentation that we are using. So let me again zoom this. So let me make sure that I'm zoomed well. Okay. So according to this documentation, we are creating a poll system. We have already done the first steps, that is checking our Django. We have already installed. We have created our site, every command. Here we have made sure that we have all the projects that we need. Then we have tested our server that was up and running. Then we saw that it's up and running. It was good. Then we also did this in case you just wanted to start your server in a different port. You can just write the port over here. And with that, now we have created also our app. That is this app here. Where is it? Is this app here that we created my app. So that was the other step. Then the other step that we need to do is actually now configuring or writing our first view. But before we write our first view, let's go to the settings and register our app. So as usual, you get your apps over here. We have two ways that you can do. And actually, let me just use the simplest one. And we are going to check the other way of configuring this application. So this app here is my app. And remember, my app is this app that we created over here. So that should be well and good. With that, the next thing that we need to do, because we have already configured our app, or we have added our app here in our settings, so now we can close that settings. The next thing that we need to do, according to the documentation website that we have been given, we need to go to the views and we need actually to render something, or we need to return the HTTP response for that. I want us to go back to our previous sessions. We have been creating templates. That is the templates for 1, 2, 3 things, creating the HTML, registering the HTML, creating the static. Today, maybe we are not going to do that, but if time allows, maybe we can try. But for simplicity, because we want to understand more things to do with the Django views and Django models, so we can just go straight to maybe use the HTTP response only for today or for this session. So with that said, what we need to do is actually go into our views and render in our HTTP response. So where do you get your views? your views are in your app. That is my app. Here is where we have our here is where we have our views. So inside our views here, because in Django shortcuts we have long ways to do things, and also we have short ways to do things. That's why we use first the Django shortcuts. So in Django shortcuts, we can either import the render, and also we can import something else, that is the HTTP, response, like that. Once we import the HTTP response, now we can use it. Then here we can just create our normal views, that is either home, or you can just name it whatever you want to use it. So I can just tab and maybe change a few things over here. And in case you are not using AI, you are messing yourself. Make sure use of this AI and this either GitHub Copilot. For example, I'm using the Amazon Q-tip that is enabling me to, you can see we have a better suggestion for my code as compared to the previous sessions. So I've used the Amazon Q-tip to suggest what should I do in the next line of code. For example, here you can see I can return the HTTP response, and the Amazon Q-tip suggested for that. So here, instead of using our normal render return render, we can either now, or we can use the HTTP response that we have, the HTTP response that we have imported it here from Django shortcuts. So inside here, you can either decide to, you can do the quotation marks, and maybe as you can see we have hello world, you are about to create a poll, something like that. That is Amazon Q-tip suggesting for me. So with that said, let me just use the uh, maybe use h1 or h2 inside here, and you can see here, let me close my tags before everything else, and then close my tags like that. Then inside here is where I'm going to create something like any random text, like hello world, welcome to the Pulse app, something like that. Then as always, make sure that you save your applications. So the next thing that we can do after that is configuring something extra that we have been doing in the previous session. So also that should not be new to you. So what we have been doing, we have two views here. You see, we have the URLs here. Then also we can create our own URLs. Why do we need to create our own URLs? Maybe someone can, for those who have attended the previous sessions, why do we need to create our own URLs instead of going to paint everything over here? Why do we need to create our URLs inside our app over here? The first thing, maybe it's because maybe you can have different apps inside the same Django project, and that's why we create only or we need, or we can use new URLs, or we can create our own URLs inside our app. Maybe you can have around three different apps. And for example, if you are adding all the URLs inside here, maybe it can be buggy at some point. At maybe some point you can confuse, and also for writing clean code, you can also, or it's advised you create your own URLs. So let's create our own URLs here. Dot py. Then inside here is where we are going to create our own URLs. So as usual, from Django.urls, because we have Django, from Django.urls, then I'm going to import path, like that. And as you can see from the Amazon Q-tip here, you can see I have a real explanation or a deep explanation of what this path does. As you can see, all these things. In case I'm not understanding what path is, I can just decide to go over here, the tab here, and then maybe I understand everything according to all these definitions and all these ways of setting these paths and everything. So in case you are not using I would advise you to kindly make use of these AI tools that we have. So inside here, we also are going to define our URL patterns. And as you can see, even before I tab, as you can see, from the suggestion that I have from Amazon Q-tip, we have this. You see all these paths already suggested for me. Maybe it can be true that I want to use this, or maybe this is not wrong. It's up to me to judge whatever I'm writing over here. So because we just want to test if our application is up and running, we need to include path as usual. Path, and then our path here, we can now include our path over here. So let me do this, then I add comma to stick with the syntax. Then here, I'm going to do views, where is our views, dot index, then after views dot index, I can comma, then I can add the name, maybe I call the name, that is the index, like that. Now, as you can see over here, we have this code is already complaining. Why is it complaining? Because we are telling this our application, grab the views from the views. You see, this is the views file, that should be this one here. This views is the whatever we are referring to here. But in our case, we have used our views that has not either been defined or has neither been imported in our code over here. So what we need to do is actually come here on top and import from the root directory of our app, import the views, like that. So basically, that's it for testing this application. So we have done with our views, our URLs that we have defined over here. Then we are done with our basic, what we call them, our basic views. Then the next thing that we can either test is going to our other views and maybe checking if there's anything that we need to add. So go to your other views, and as usual, because we are using different views in a different app, make sure that you include them. Use the include. Make sure that you include them. Then, as usual, now here you can now type the path of that views. As you can see, before I type anything, as you can see from here, I have a suggestion of whatever I need to import from here in our path. As you can see, I can either accept and everything. I just press tab and then I accept my properties, or I accept my URLs. So inside here, you see this my URLs over here, my app dot URL. So it's going to my app, then grabbing the URLs and then including those URLs inside all this file. Then now we can now test our application. But before we test our application, I want us to add something here, and maybe we are going to explain it later after we test the result. I'm going to explain the purpose of that after we test the result. Let's run our application. Remember that we had stopped the server, so we can just decide to run our server again. so that we test our application. So let me go here and then test my application, and you can, as you can see, my application doesn't work. I have an error that I need to reference because we have these paths over here. You see these paths. We need now maybe to route to one of the apps. Maybe I can test my app. As you can see, I have a suggestion over here, and as you can see, I have this code up and running in the first trial. But before we continue, anyone with any question? Before we continue, anyone with any question? Maybe you can raise up your hand. Um, mhm. Yes, hello. Mm-hmm. What's not working? Yeah, yeah. After, did you stop your server? Okay, maybe you need to stop your server, or you can just decide to add one more tab in your PowerShell. Just click here and just add one more tab in your PowerShell and maybe use it. But make sure that you navigate to the correct path, and our path should be exactly all the way to my site. So in my second tab, I'm going to navigate to desktop because I'm going to later use this tab. I'm going to later use I'm going to later use this tab. So let me just prepare it. You can just prepare it together. I'm navigating all the way to my yes. Do you have any other question? Okay, okay, thank you. So I'm going to prepare my second tab because I'm going to later use it. So let me just prepare it. Let me just navigate to the correct folder. I'm going to cd to the next folder, that should be Django applications. Then I should cd to the poll system. Then I can just leave it up to there for the moment. Then um, we have tested our app, and our app is up and running. Anyone with any other question before maybe we continue to the next part? Because as we continue, things are just getting uh, complicated at some point. Anyone with any other question? You can just raise up your hand. Someone is saying they have an error in views. What error are you getting? In case you are getting error in views, you can either check my views. Where are my views? See these views here? Maybe you have not imported the HTTP response, or maybe you have a spelling error in the HTTP response word. So you can just check mine, and you just make sure that you have written it correctly. And the H1 tags should be inside our block here, and our block here is closed with the quotation marks. So in case you are getting errors in views, make sure it's this. If you are writing the same thing but you have still an error, maybe the problem is indentation, just go back all the way back and then press enter. It will automatically indent itself. So that one should be working. Maybe any other error? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just kill this. Let me kill this server and then start it afresh like that. Then here, let me just refresh on this side. Oh wow. So let me just go back to home page like that. Maybe my server is not giving me the error. I don't know why. Maybe I can make another intentional error in responses. Or in case I can just write responses here and then uh, a different error here. Something intentional. Yeah. So this one should be giving me error message. Mhm. Maybe I correct that, then go back to the server. Then mine is working after correcting that error, David. Okay. So this one should be now running well. Um, but you can, in case you have more errors, you can just check. Yes, you can see Michael Kimani. Your error is define. You have not closed your H1 tags. You have just closed, but you have missed the H1 text as from the chat. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've had, see. Yeah. Okay, so I can just correct this to the correct tags and then we continue. So with that, let's continue and do the other parts of this project. We have already done the views. We have already set up our views. We have already what else? We have set our views. We have created our other views, our other URLs, sorry, not views. We have imported everything correctly. We have tested our app. Uh, Now it's up and running. So up to that stage, everyone's app should be up and running. So with that said, let's try now setting up our database. As you can see, by default, once you started your Django application, we add this SQLite project with you. That was by default, that was here. And that means every query or everything that we are going to write, or our databases, maybe tables, they are going to be shown over here. Maybe if you do the migrations, if you do everything to do with the database you configure, then that means we are going to see maybe tables or some queries over here. So the next thing that we need to do to check if everything is configured or our database is configured, just to cross check, go to your settings and then go to your database. You can see we have the template. Let's see. Then we have our databases. Then it's not a must that you use the SQL, the SQLite for Django project. That means let's go to our documentation and maybe see if our documentation suggests for different databases. Let's see. I think we are done with most of these settings, the basics. So we can go to the next page. Now setting up the database. It's not a must that we use the SQLite, the default one. We can either decide to go with the Postgres or Postgre SQL. We can either decide to go with the MySQL. We can either decide to go with Oracle, and we can either choose any other database that we maybe want to use according to the purpose of our application. So that means it's not a must that we use the SQLite database that has been provided by Django. But for demo purposes, let's today use the SQLite. Maybe the time we are going to deploy our application, if time allows, maybe not today, maybe the next sessions, we'll get to some point where we need to deploy. Maybe we can now switch to Postgres once we are deploying. But for now, you can either decide to go with the SQLite because by default is already here with us. So what's next? The next thing is actually we can try something. We can try doing database migration here, or we can try migrating over here. So what we need to do, we can either decide to use this terminal that we have created over here, the second one here, or we can either decide to use the our Visual Studio Code, the terminal that has been provided. So I will open my terminal like this. So this should be showing my terminal like this. Let me just hide that. Here should be showing my terminal, and actually now I can do migrations. So I want us to try something with this terminal without us changing anything in this terminal. So we can just try python manage.py, then we do migrate with the command that is migrate. Then we try. As you can see, no module named Django. That means we need to maybe activate the virtual environment before we do the migration. So maybe if you do an error, as usual, the console should be giving you the error message, and now maybe it can suggest for you to do things. That means we need to activate our virtual environment so that we do our thing. So let's see if maybe I'm in the correct site. Maybe I can just go back one step and let me see. Yeah, so I can just activate my virtual environment over here. No, it should be activate like that. So once now I do the activation over here, maybe now I can try the migration. But in case it fails over here, now I can go back to my my site. Maybe I can try to cd into my site and try the migrations now, or try migrating our app and see if we are going to get an error. If we get an error, of course we are going to fix that. And as you can see, it has done some applying some migrations, and everything is now well and good. So to test if this we have anything in our database and then we explain, we can try going to my SQL over here. As you can see here, now this file is no longer opening. Maybe you can configure it to either open with our Visual Studio Code, or we can use the SQLite. Maybe we try, and that only gives the queries over here. Just ignore this for now. But as you can see, we have suggestion of some commands that we have created, or that Django application has created um, this database, or configured or migrated all these for us. It has created the sessions table, default ones, the user, the permissions, and all these tables, they have been created for us. For now, you can ignore the red things. We don't need to use this for now. This one was just to show you that we have done the migrations. So let's add one more thing so that we can view the user interface for this database, or the user interface for this database. So let's go to um, the models, and maybe see if there's anything that we need to configure in our models, and then from there we are going to do something. So we are going to go to our models, and maybe we'll add one more line of code, and then we explain the output. So what we are going to do here, or what we want to achieve, is creating a poll system. Now here is where we define our database. How our database will look like, the fields that we are going to write, or the fields that we are going to input, either time, either enter the poll, enter anything, all those things, we are going to define them inside our models. So inside our models, because we want to stick with our thing over here, so let's do this, and then we're going to we have done something over here. So what we are going to do, but before we write anything over here, if or in case you write any text over here, or any model, or anything, or even if you change a small, only one line of code, you always have to migrate this you always have to migrate this code. Also, you always have to run this command. See this command that we have run over here. In case you change anything inside your models, remember that is your database that you are updating, you are writing how your database will interact with things, how your database will you write things, how you are going to receive. Basically here you are just writing the SQL queries. But we can just flex and write them in a Python way. So I've said, in case you make any changes inside these models, always make sure that you migrate this code. So what we are going to do here, we are going to define a class here And this class we are going to call it question. And I'm going to explain this line of code. But before I write this code, where am I getting this code from? Where am I getting this code from? Actually, this code is in this documentation. You see this code over here? This is what we are trying to achieve over here. So this is a not new thing that we are writing. Everything exists in here, in these lines, in this documentation that we have shared on the chat or with you. So we are trying to follow a documentation and see maybe if we are given some documented code, are we able to achieve the goal from that documented code instead of following maybe a tutorial or a live tutorial. So that's what we are doing. We are not writing anything new. Everything is inside this documentation. So inside our models, so let's do this. Let's create a class. We already know what class stands for when we are learning OP and also those things. We also know the syntax, so we need to start it with the uppercase letter that is Q for question. Then here, remember this is a, what do we call them? These are libraries that have already been developed. That means inside those libraries, we have a lot of things inside them. That's why inside models, we are importing the model. That's why we are saying models dot model. Maybe in JavaScript, you can call it optical chaining. You chain something inside, or you grab something inside another thing. You can call it optical chaining. So inside here, this function here is where we are going to write exactly these functions. You can either decide to do that or copy and paste, or you can either decide to type these questions or this text for practice. So we are going to type question text exactly the way it has been defined. And as you can see here, we have my Amazon Q tip again, try to suggest what I want to write or what I need to write. So I'm going to use the models. Then I'm going to use the character field, and then I'm going to set the maximum width or maximum length of this thing. So let me explain. So we grab the models, then we set the character field. The character field should be a maximum length of maybe if you are writing a statement, maybe you have seen places where you are maybe applying for a job, maybe you are said or you have been told in 300 words, either in 300 words, explain yourself or do something or explain your problem in 300 words, in 200 words, in 100 words. Then the moment you are typing, then the system automatically counts the number of words, then it deducts and gives you the number of words that you are trying, or the number of words that you have written, the remaining, and all that. So this is the same thing. We are not trying to achieve the same functionality, but here we are counting the number of words inside that input field that we are going to enter our poll. Maybe you are going to create, maybe we are creating a poll, and actually when you are creating a poll, you need to enter some inputs. Um, maybe we have 3 people who you are voting to. So you remember that input field that you have to type? Exactly, that's what we want to achieve. So that input field, calculate the number of words or the number of character fields, then you deduct here. So the maximum length of these characters, let's maybe put it to 250. Maybe someone can create a longer poll. Maybe it's a statement explaining the poll. So actually that needs to be maybe considered for that case. Or maybe this poll is a statement where you're asking people, nini, 1, 2, 3 things. Uh, let's set it to 250 maximum length. Maybe because it's a poll, we want to see the date when the poll was published. So here you are going to do the pub date, for example, and here we can actually use that autocomplete, and then I explain what's happening over here. So what's happening over here? You see this date field. These date fields are not things that we are trying to create on our own. Remember, we are using models, but inside models, we have date field. So that's nothing new. That, or you're wondering where are we getting the date field? That is something that has already been created. It's now up to you to use it to format the dates, to create the date format, and everything. So here we are going to uh, make it, but in case of this, we can either do date field, or we can do it date. Maybe I can combine date time field. Maybe I can use that. So the date time field here, maybe we can call it a string. Maybe we can use a string, and we give it date published. But before we continue, let's see if uh, this ours here uses a string. Yeah, it uses a string, and actually you can read out through the documentation and know what's trying to happen here. So for example, you can see in this statement states the name of each field instance, e.g. the question text and date is a field name. It's an input, it's a field name in a machine friendly format. So you'll use this value in Python code, and your database will use it as the column name. So you can read through the documentation to understand further what these are actually doing. So with that said, maybe maybe we can test that. We can test that. But before we continue, before we test that, I've said whenever you are trying to test something, always, or whenever you have made any changes and maybe you'd like to test, you can either or you need to do migration every single time, every single time you need to do the migrations. But before we do the migrations, maybe we can create one more class over here. And this class, we can call it, this is a question, and then every question has choices, or as a particular choice. So we can use that models.model. Then inside here, I'm still going to use the same thing. So you can either copy and paste this, or you can either decide to uh, to do away with them. So in this case, I'm going to copy the three things, and I'm going to explain what's happening with our code over here. So here, you remember this is a question. Then we create another variable here that we are going to assign to model.foreign key. Remember, this is a database. You need to use foreign keys. These things, maybe they are not new to you if you have gone through the database questions or the database class. So this question here, we have imported it. Here we have used this function over here, or this class, we have used it over here, or we have called it over here. Then here we are using on delete. For now, you can ignore this. We are going to go back to the documentation and see if the documentation explains to us what this code does. Then here we have a choice text. That is a variable. Here, the same, you see this question text, still the same as this choice text. Model dot character field, because it's an input field, then we set the maximum character length to 200, or to either 250. You can either stick with 200, or you can either go to 250. Then here, remember, it's a poll. In a poll, you vote, and that vote is either 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and that is a number, or that is an integer. So models, you assign the votes to models.integer field, that is, and you set the default as 0. Because it's a new poll that you're creating, make it as no or with 0 votes. That's why we are setting the default value of that vote to be 0. Whenever we are creating a poll, make the default values to be 0. So with that said, maybe we can test our application. And as usual, I've said, whenever you make any changes in our models, we need first to migrate the run the python manage.py migrate, then and see no migrations to apply. But before that, maybe we can try another command, and maybe if Dave will be here to explain to us what this code does. So, or someone else instead of Dave, maybe you have interacted with this code, maybe you can explain to us what this code does. So we are going to do Python manage.py, python manage.py, then make migrations. Think, let me just delete this and type it, make migrations, then make migrations my app. So what we are trying to do here, maybe Dave will take time, maybe explain 1 minute or 30 seconds. What we are trying to do here, maybe initially I've said we can create uh, several apps inside our Django project. But remember, these Django apps, maybe we need to register them inside our one settings file. And maybe remember we have created our views, not our views, but our URLs, new URLs that we have created. And maybe we need also to register those URLs inside our main URLs. The same case we are trying to do over here. Maybe I have different apps and I've only made some queries in one of the apps. So what I'm doing here, I'm trying only to migrate whatever is in my apps, not in a different app, not in a different app. So this is what we are trying to achieve. Maybe I can run this code and see. As you can see, we have done create models and then create the model choice. So we have two models. Where are they? Go to your models. We have the question and we have the choice. Have we successfully migrated the question and also successfully migrated the choice? So, with that said, anyone with any question before we continue? I want us to move together. But in case you're wondering where I'm getting all these commands are already here. So, as you can see, this is what you all need to do. These commands are not new, they are already here in our documentation. Anyone with any question, or maybe they are stuck with their project, or if they are moving together with us, maybe they are stuck. Any question, you can raise up your hand. Mhm. Okay. Okay. The same code that I've written, this same code here, this is either SQL or Postgres, depends with how, whenever the time we make migration now depends with the database that we are going to use or that we are using, and then it will transform that to the code. So this is the code. Maybe if you change that code to either into my SQL format, then this code should be looking the same as this code. So this code over here is the same as writing this one or this code. Maybe if you are using Postgres, maybe it will interpret to this kind of syntax. The problem or the difference is just the syntax. And I've said, kindly make sure that you make use of AI every time, any single moment. But before we continue, we are about to complete the cohort. I think we are in week 12 or 12 if I'm not wrong. So you should have already started your project. So make sure that you have an idea, project idea, then start implementation. But in case you don't have any idea, we are here for you. We can share a catalog of ideas. Then from there, you choose whatever you want to develop or whatever. Maybe you can innovate from the catalog that we are going to share with you. Maybe you are facing a problem, but you don't know how to explain it, or you don't know how to interpret that project or that into software project. Then we can help you now figure out your problem. Then we take that problem and we transform that into software. If you have no project, we are going to share ideas. But if you have started working on your project, then uh, feel free to consult whenever you get stuck. If you have not, you should have already started. If you have no idea, we are going to share project ideas with you. So let's continue. And maybe we try to test our application. Maybe we can try to test these applications. So what we are going to do, we are going now to access our database. So to access our database, let me clear this screen. Maybe hide this. Let's test our application. So to test our application, we need to set up our login. But before we set up our login, I want us to check on something over here. You see this domain over here? Let's just copy another one here and duplicate that. And maybe change this to admin. Is it admin or is it my admin? As you can see here, we have this Django admin. Let's see. As you can see, this one can't log in or can't register. Maybe I can try 1, 2, 3, 4, any random password. So you can see it's not able to log in. This is why, the reason why it's not login, we need to set up our database first. So to set up our database, we need to set up our database, we need to go to our code and set up our login credentials. So to set up our login credentials, we need to run the following command inside here or inside our terminal here. So what we are going to do, we are going to do Python manage.py, as usual, manage.py, then create super super user, super user, and then you press enter. As you can see, you have unapplied migrations. May not work until you apply migrations. As you can see, maybe I've made some few changes over here, but I've not applied migrations. So let me apply migrations first. I can stop this. Mhm, mhm. Okay, okay, okay. So let's clear, but yeah, there we go. You can ignore this error for now, but make sure that you always migrate. Don't ignore these kind of errors. They can mess you, or maybe you can either piss yourself off, maybe thinking that your app is not running, it's not okay. Maybe you can piss yourself off. So you need to do. So the login credentials that I'm going to set, maybe I can set that to admin, or I can either set that to anything. So whatever I'm not going to forget, let me stick with admin because I know I won't forget for the next session. Then here for the email address, you can enter your email address. After you enter your email address, then type any password. So the password, make it strong as usual if you are creating this for production, but if you are also testing it, also make it um, strong. Maybe you're creating something that is going to production or with crucial information, but you're still in the test stage. Make it make it strong. So I'm going to make my password like that. I'm going to repeat my password. Then, as you can see, my password is too common, so I need to set up. I've just typed 1234. So you need to set your password with at least 8 characters with all those other numeric types. Then, with that, maybe I can just decide to bypass that. Then I can just type Y to bypass that. Now, here, I've successfully created those logins. In case now I try to reload this and maybe I log in, then as you can see automatically it has logged me out. I can log out, I can log in again, I can type admin and then my password is still here. Then I can log in and there we go. I don't need to save that password and so I can ignore. So here is my database where I'm going to create all those things. As you can see, maybe you can try to explore some of these things. You can see we have no groups. Do you have any users? We only have the admin. That is the super user. Do you have anything else that we can explore? Not really. So we can stick with that for now and maybe now create something extra, create the schema and create everything. Anybody who might be, yeah, yeah, yeah. The admin. I think we have a button here. Ah, damn, it's not working. Yeah, should be working. Yeah. Maybe maybe I can create Evans Mutuku, something like that. Let's say, yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's how you can add a user. You can check all these details when the user joined, everything. As you can see, I'm 3 hours ahead of the server time, so that means you can either configure this if you want to try, but you can try different time zones in your settings. Is it in your settings? Let me try. In your settings you can check different time zones you set up over here, so that you can configure. So that one can be your challenge. Get the time zone and the coordinates, and then maybe set it up here, and that one should fix maybe uh, this difference with time. So with that, so let's do the next part, that is writing our the other parts of this code. So let's go to our models and maybe now add something extra in these lines of code. So again, because we are following a documentation, so let's see what in our documentation. So where were we? We already created that. We have done we registered our apps. So we did our migrations. We did all the migrations, and maybe you can just explore this code. But before we explore, so maybe if you run this kind of command, maybe you'll see the outputs. But this is not our main focus. But we can either try that. We can either try this command and see what this command does for us. So let's see what this does. This code does for us. No app installed with this Paul. Yeah, I know why. It's nothing like Paul. So our application, to see our application, we need to check. Let's see. Let's see our output if we have any. So that one should be like that. Yeah. So Dev, what's happening here? Okay. So so we have already done this. We have seen what this does. So we can just decide to ignore that. Then you can read through the documentation. Then you can do the migration as usual. Then you can play around with the API if you want to play around with it. But in our case, we don't want to play around with our API. We can just ignore these parts, and maybe now go here to our models, and here is where we are going to add some few things. But before we do that, let's see understand our code or the statement from here. So we are using this instead of simply typing python manage.py environment, which gives a Django import path. So we can just ignore that. Maybe see what this code does. So wait a minute, this question, blah blah blah. It's helpful representation in this object. So let's fix that by editing the question model. So what we are going to do here, maybe we can understand this. We can read this before we paste our code or we type our code. So it's important to add this here, these models here, these methods to your Django models, not only for your own conveniences when dealing with the interactive prompts, but also because objects representation are used throughout Django automatically generated admin. So let's customize that code. So to customize this code, we need to add it inside our models. So where do we need to add them? So we need to go to our models, and as usual inside our question, so here we add our first thing here. So we are going to define underscore, should be string like that. Wow, that AI is so powerful. Double underscore and write it as a string, str, should be like that. Then the double underscore like that, and maybe we can leave it all the way to here, and then maybe now change this one. So this one, it's a function that should do this. It should be looking like this. Then it should return something here. So it should return self dot the question text like this. So it's going to return this, and already this one we have already written here. So can we do this for the date? Of course. So let's do it for the date, and for the date we are going to define a function that we are going to call it this thing was um published, maybe we can add recently, was published recently on here. So here we are going to return self dot the pub date or the publication date, self dot the pub date, sorry, so let me check on something. So this one should be self dot the pub date, which is greater than or equal to the time zone. And I'm going to show you how we do the time zones in case our code complain. Time zone dot now, at the moment, at the second we are talking, is what we are calling time zone that's now, all the time in this zone at this moment. So time zone dot now minus date time dot time delta, and the time delta should be equal to the time delta should be equal to 1, something like this, if I'm not wrong. We are going to review the documentation again. Dot equal to 1. So we can review the documentation and see if we have imported that, and actually this one should be like this. Self date is greater than or equal to time zone date time dot time delta, and that means time zone. Maybe it's a more module that has been developed by people instead of now hard coding our time zone, all these things. Maybe it's something that has been already developed. And as you can see, we can import it from here. So we can just decide to import that time zone all the way from here, and make sure to type the correct syntax. Import the time zone, and maybe also import date time. Import the date time library or something like that. Now let's see what we have defined, but it's not used. So we have Django.db. could not be resolved from source, you can just ignore that. It's from the extensions, repeating some module source, just you can just ignore that for now. That means time zone dot now. You see this time delta dot now. This one has already been imported. That means everything now is good for us to use. But before we continue, let's set up the last thing inside our choice here. So inside our choice, again, let's make it a string and delete all the unnecessary code from that autocomplete and delete all this code. And then from here, now we can type the self dot uh, dot this choice text because it's a field character. So this text choice, you can call it choice text the way it has been written over here. So as you can see, everything now should be well and good. So once we save this and we check our DB and see if we need to do any migration, maybe test this, maybe go back like that. Maybe we reload. As you can see, we don't have those tables added for us. So as usual, what we need to do is always do the migration. So I'm going to do the migration this way. Where is the migration? Get the previous command. I'm going to do that. Going to refresh and see. We still need to do the complete command. So let me, after doing the migration, let me now do the full migration of my app. That is Python manage.py make migrations my app. Then as you can see, no changes made. Let me refresh. See where that one should be already added over here. So where have we gone wrong? Okay, so we need to register this. So we need to go to admin. Yeah, thank you, David. So you need to go to admin and actually now register our admin and everything inside our admin over here. So what we are going to do, we're just going to use the admin. You see this admin here. We're going to use that admin dot register dot site. It should be dot site dot register the model, or we can just call it dot register like that. And here, I want you to see something. Where is it? See this model here. This is the question with all the input fields that we are trying to register and also pushing that to our database. So that means we need to register so that we can appear here. So one more thing that we need to do here is now actually use use the variable name. As you see, this variable name should be coming from this question, and because it's not yet imported, we can just import it over here. So we are going to import everything inside our models. Everything inside our models. Is it our model or models? Then import. We want to import the question like that. Then we save. Then we try our site. Then as you can see, it has automatically been added over here. So we can explore the questions. You can see we have no questions. That means now we can add the question. Maybe you can see the question text and also the question date published. For that, only the two fields that we have defined. And now here you can say hello world. So that is the input. Then here you can enter the date, or you can just select today. That is the date for today. Maybe you select the time for that, and you maybe you save and add another, or you can save and continue editing. And with that said, we have created all our apps. Is there anything, maybe Dave, that we need to import before maybe we prepare for the next session? We prepare a short code for the next session. Anything? Or anyone with any question? Yes, David. There we have it. Okay. So so with that said, that means now we can now see the users, the list of users, uh, all these actions. You see, we have added dev, we have added all these users. So that's it. That's what you can do with Django. As you can see, it's very fast to build the admin side. You don't need to hard code your admin side, creating all these admin sides. Uh, that we hard code with other libraries like React. You need to add. You need to hard code all these things. You can either decide to go with this Django for you to now stop all these other actions. So with that said, maybe because of time, I can see we have around 10 minutes. We can stop there, or we can just add one more thing so that we use the 10 minutes. So what we are going to do, we are going to go back to our documentation and see maybe the next action that we need to do. We have set our password. You have seen we can log into the admin or those other permissions. Maybe you can go to the next thing and see part 3 of this application. You can go all the way to the last part, read through, and build it on top of us. So what we need to do is adding more views. And adding more views, because it's a poll, we can just decide to, it's a question, we need to add all these things in our views. So we can copy this code and maybe we explain what's happening. So go to your views and maybe add some more views over here. We have added the views for details, results. We can view results, and actually we can see the vote. So over here, we have the question ID. Every question has its own ID. For example, when you go to a blog, you see blog slash slash how to create Python. For example, it's here. See this path here. This is the ID that we are trying to talk about here. You can see the question ID, the answers ID, that is the results, the votes ID. So that's what we are trying to achieve. But here we are just appending the ID. When you go to that path, you're just appending these IDs over here. Everything over here, when you go to the all the questions details, all the results details, all the votes details, that's whatever we are trying to achieve here. So this, let's see, this is a parameter that we are passing over here. And this actually, let's see what this does. This is the same parameter that we are using over here, and we are setting it over here. So as you can see, this type ID is type of any. We have not restricted our ID to type of text, type of text, type of anything. So it's still here. So we can now configure that. But maybe this we are going to explain it in the next session. We want to utilize the 10 minutes, the 8 minutes now. Maybe we can prepare this and see how this works. So the next thing after preparing this is actually going to our views and now adding all these other paths. So these other paths we can just copy and go to our views. Wait, what have we done? Actually, this one should be also included in our views. Let's see. Yeah, I know. It should be inside our in our URL patterns over here. So we need to add them over here. This is the same thing, just correct the indentation, and everything should be working correctly. Let me see where I've gone wrong. So what have I done wrong? Let's see. Yes, Eric. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So that should be the problem. So I need to add comma over here. So you can see the commas over here. Everything is just like that. So once we save and test this, maybe we can test this and then we explain what this code does. So here we are going to go to our site here and maybe change this URL to something else. You can see we are um, in the index. Maybe you can go to the details slash, for example, details slash details. As you can see, this one is not working. Any problem? Anyone who can see the problem? Yeah. In the, yeah, this one. Okay. So basically, because we are running out of time, we are 3 minutes past our normal time. So what we are going to do is actually you are going to either clone this code, and then maybe in the next session we are going to now create every single page for these IDs. Maybe we can see what's next in our documentation. We are not going to create it. Maybe is this maybe we are going to add this later in our next part. We are going to configure the actual poll or the actual detail that we want to see in our templates over here. So basically, that's it for our today's session. I'll push this code to GitHub. Let me just add another terminal. I'm going to push this code to GitHub. So let me just push it straight to this one here that we created, and we have the git ignore. So if you have the git ignore, always make sure that the git ignore, we have ignored everything that we need uh, to git ignore. As you can see, this ignore is ignoring star for everything. You know that in database it refers to everything. So the first thing that we are going to ignore is actually the libraries that we need to add here. For example, you can call these node modules in case you have that. And also we are going to ignore the virtual environment like that. And with that, we are going to make sure that we have not pushed all these code uh, to GitHub. So maybe we can push this code to GitHub and maybe now you can access it. So git init as usual, then git add, or then I'm going to git commit with a message of maybe first stage or first session of our poll. Then I'm going to make sure that I go to my GitHub and then create that repository and everything like that. Let me just create this repository quick fast, and I can call this Django poll. This one should be I can just do it like that. Maybe because I've done all the steps over here, I can just add this. Where is it? In our terminal like this. Then I'm going to git push that uh, to our branch. I use the master branch, so let me just push that to my default branch, that is the master branch. So we are going to share this session recording and also this repo for you to use. Maybe you clone it. If you get any errors, maybe you can just text us. So that's it for our today's session. We are going to end it there. And if you want, maybe you are confused or maybe you got stuck, you can maybe join the next session that is in 6 p.m. East African time. Maybe you can enjoy the session. So basically, that's it for today's session. Yes, Dave.